r/ASKREDDIT what's the most fucked up shit you've walked into? Friend got shit faced at a party, was put to bed to sleep it off. Lots of us stayed there as to not drive drunk. Well, when I got up to use the bathroom I found aforementioned passed out dude sitting on the toilet with the lid down. He had his dick in his hand and was sitting in a puddle of shit. At some point in the night he got up to take a shit and decided to jerk off. He was forever known as Poop and Jerk from that point on. Didn't walk into it so much as it walked into me. On a night out in another town waiting for a taxi home. Random drunk lass walks around the corner from the strip to where the taxi rank is, lifts her dress up, bends over and just sprays diarrhea up the wall in front of about 20 people, pulls her dress down and walks right into another club. The range was impressive, if nothing else. This summer I was leaving work in a rural area in NY, got to the main highway, let a motorcycle pass, turned and started down the road behind him. He was going fast. Anyone who lives in rural NY can probably guess where this is going. I see a deer bolting across a field ahead of us. Surely this man on the motorcycle sees the deer? Hopefully the deer hears the motorcycle? Nope. The deer runs into the road. The guy wipes out. The deer miraculously jumps over the skidding bike and runs off. I stop my car, start running to the guy while I'm dialing 911. There's a thin layer of what used to be his foot spread out over the road. He's screaming for me to get the bike off him. Other cars are stopping and we pull the bike off him while I'm trying to get an ambulance. His hand was completely fucked. His foot was pinned under his bike. His shoe came off, and it was shaved down to the bone. He took off his helmet, and we saw he was probably close to 80. He was chewing on a toothpick and it went through his lip. We wrapped a belt around his leg to stop the bleeding. The ambulance arrived, they took him, and I never heard what happened to him. He was wearing jeans, a leather jacket, no gloves, and loafers. The bloody skid mark that used to be his foot was there for days until it rained and got washed away. In my junior year of college my best friend and I were helping pack up his girlfriend's room at the end of the semester when I heard some weird noise coming from the bathroom. It kind of sounded like someone having sex, so I thought it would be hilarious to kick the door open and surprise them. It turned out the cleaning woman was on the floor having a seizure. Friend and I went out to get pizza and took his little sister too. Gone maybe 20 minutes. Got back and his little sister runs inside before us. He walks after her and I follow. As I get in I see both of them frozen in place staring at something. As I round the corner I see their dad strangling their mom. Both crumpled on the stairs leading up. It was eerily fucking quiet. Like she was sitting there dying without a sound. I was in a state of shock but I wasn't paralyzed by it, so I walked over and calmly grabbed his wrists and pulled his hands from her neck. Still no sounds at all. Super quiet. She started gasping then and the sound snapped everyone out of it. That's when all hell broke loose with everyone screaming and freaking out. My own mom asked why I didn't beat the hell out of him and I had to explain to her that I was in a sort of calm daze. I was watching someone trying to kill someone else and I just couldn't process it. As an adult now I would have absolutely beaten to a greasy pulp, but I was like 16 then. She survived with a badly bruised neck and thankfully did everything right. Restraining order, divorce, moved away. Got a message from a friend of my then girlfriend. Told me I needed to go to my girlfriend's house because she was feeling rather horny. Was odd that her friend sent me this message, but I thought I was getting sex so I hauled us over there. She was horny alright. Horny for the two dudes spit roasting her. I used to work in a prison. It's a British female prison and I was a male officer. At lockup time I was getting everyone back to their cells, mainly by ineffectively shouting at the women, but slowly they were getting banged up for the night. I walked in this one cell to check and on the floor were two women inserting a 2L full Coke bottle into the other. Fat end first. The inserters were about 25 and the receiver 50. I just noped out of there. Came back 5 minutes later and everyone was back in their own cell with just the receiver sat watching TV in her own cell. Not a word was said by me or them. Locked everyone away and never told anyone except my wife when I got home. And she was like, yeah well you can fit a baby out that way, a Coke bottle isn't that much wider. prison stories are fun. I was assigned to a constant suicide watch once. 24-hour monitoring of an inmate that has shown signs of self-harm or is suspected of having drugs up their butt, and we're waiting for them to poop them out. Anyway, the guy was crazy. He was transferred in from another prison for cutting open his nutsack with a safety razor. I'm there, parked in front of the cell door for 8 hours logging everything this weirdo does. He proceeds to tell me how he cut open his opener sack, squeezed out his nuts, and asks if I want to see. I respectfully declined with a fuck no. Go lay down. Well, he really wanted me to see, I guess. This was my next logbook entry. 1723 hours. Inmate Johnson 1234 is performing a handstand against the cell door, exposing his genital area through the food port. Reddit hub here. If you're interested in collaborating, drop me a DM on Instagram. Reddit hub _. I was delivering a parcel to a business in a remote location. Walked in and found a naked chick throwing cucumbers at an elderly gentleman's spread-ass cheeks. She saw me and told me to wait a second while she threw 2 or 3 more. It appeared as though she was trying to javelin them into his crinkly old brown eye. Then she came over, signed, and went and started collecting the cucumbers. The old guy shouted thanks. There must have been 30 cucumbers on the floor. Later that day I delivered a parcel to a guy that was in the middle of being arrested. The cops let him sign though, and he told me it was a dildo for the cop's wife, and the cop replies that if he didn't shut his mouth he'd shove the box up his ass. It was a great day and I still think fondly of that old man and his baggy shit piece. In college I was walking up the back stairs to my dorm, and I heard noises a floor up as I entered the stairwell. It was late, maybe 3 in the morning. This was 20 years ago. I walk up and there's this dude trying to rape this girl who lived the floor above my floor. He had her behind and was yanking her pants off while she was crying and telling him to stop. I grabbed him from the back of the neck and yanked him, and he fell down the 8 or so steps to the landing below us. He yelled fuck you, pulled up his pants and took off. The girl just asked me not to tell anyone and wanted to go back to her room. Never talked about it again. I saw her sometimes and she'd wave, but that was about it. Looking back I should have called the cops or something, but she was so animate about not wanting to do anything that young me let it go. Alrighty, here we go. At distant father's house for visitation. I'm like 15 at the time. In a decently rural area. No neighbors for miles. Large old house from the 1800s. People just start pouring in and are partying in the backyard. Dad's an alcoholic, so it's whatever, I'm just trying to chill and read. Look out the window around midnight cause I hear a commotion. Entire group of middle-aged people including my father are just screwing in the backyard. 80-year-old naked guy walks by me in the house, pouring himself a drink. Says don't go outside bud. So I call my buddy and leave and come back the next day and hear my dad's apology. Shit was wild LMAO. Edit. I have tons of stories about my visitation to my father's home over the years. If you express interest I'll comment more below. Edit. Everyone's loving this shit so I'm posting all stories below. The more interest expressed the more I post. At a party slightly drunk. Walked in on 2 of my buddies going at it with 2 nice looking women. My buddies didn't know either of the girls' names. Without hesitation one of the women said come here and I'll suck your dick. I looked at my buddy who was going at it with her. My buddy said well what are you waiting for? I accepted but couldn't finish from the sheer shock of what was going on. My buddies did finish and then we all went to dinner. One of my friends ended up having a short relationship with the woman who sucked my dick. I still don't know either of the women's names. When I was 12 I volunteered at the library in the kids section. If kids wanted a copy of something made, they had to ask me and I would charge it to their library card. I went to go make copies of a picture in Horton Hears a Who. Definitely so the kid could color the picture. I walk into the back and there's a cop with a guy bent over the table in handcuffs, throwing bags of what I thought were green spices and sugar, as well as wads of money. I said I needed to use the copier, and he said that was fine. So I stood right next to them while he finished emptying this guy's pockets and I copied a picture of a Dr. Swiss elephant. I went back to deliver the copies to the kid, who was about 8 or 9. I told the kid why it took so long, that there was cops searching a guy in the back. I explained the strange items I'd seen him pull out and the kid deadpan goes that's weed and cocaine. My dad does them.